What if I told you about a story that doesn't just happen to you, but happens because of you? A story where every single decision, every fork in the road, is completely up to you. Well, today we're going to look at a simple story like that, one that, when it was shared with a group of kids, opened up some amazingly deep conversations about how we all make choices. Okay, so let's jump right in. This all comes from a project called Karar Sizin, which basically means the choice is yours. It's an interactive adventure, and like all the best adventures, it kicks off with a call to action. So first, we meet our hero, Deniz. She's a curious, adventurous kid, and her totally normal day is about to get turned completely upside down. Why? Because an unexpected visitor shows up with a message that changes everything. Yeah, an owl. And this owl delivers some pretty serious news. The wise old tree, the very heart of the forest, is dying. Its roots are drying up, and because of that, the fate of every single creature in that forest is just hanging in the balance. So right off the bat, the stakes are set incredibly high. This isn't just about saving one tree. It's about the survival of the entire ecosystem. And all of that responsibility? It now rests on young Deniz's shoulders. No pressure, right? And here we go. This is where the first real choice comes into play. Deniz knows she has to get to that tree, but how she gets there? Well, that's the first puzzle that she and you have to figure out. So on one side, you've got this dark, kind of spooky, overgrown path, a shortcut for sure. And on the other, there is a great, wide-open path that goes along the river, but it looks much longer. You can just feel the difference between those two journeys just by looking at them. And this is just a brilliant picture of a classic trade-off, isn't it? Do you take the fast but risky route to save precious time? Or do you play it safe, take the longer path, and pretty much guarantee you'll get there in one piece? It's all about speed versus security. So for the sake of the story, Deniz takes the short, dangerous path. But the danger she runs into isn't some big, scary monster or a tricky trap. No, it's something much more complicated. It's a test of her character. So think about this. She's in a huge rush, trying to save the entire forest, when she finds this one single creature who needs help right here, right now. The clock is ticking on her main mission, but here's a life that needs saving immediately. What on earth is she supposed to do? And this is where the whole thing just gets fascinating, because this exact dilemma was put to a group of 6 to 8-year-old kids, and their answers, wow, they were just incredible. This was the big question for them. Should she help the fox and risk the entire forest, or should she push forward on her mission and leave the fox behind? I mean, how do you even begin to make a choice like that? The first answer came from a student named Rana, and her approach was super clear, very rational. For her, the decision had to be based on logic. Maybe she was thinking about the needs of the many versus the needs of the few. But then, almost immediately, another student, Neda, came in with a totally different idea. She said the choice should come from her heart, from her feelings and her empathy, that the suffering you see right in front of you might just be more important than a danger that feels farther away. And right there, these kids, without any prompting, basically tapped in to one of the oldest debates in all of philosophy, the head versus the heart. It's amazing. They naturally split into two camps, one group guided by logic and reason, the other by feelings and intuition. And the conversation didn't stop there, not by a long shot. The kids started thinking bigger, not just about Deniz's decision, but about any decision we make. What are all the things that actually go into the choices we make every single day? I mean, just look at this list they came up with. It's unbelievably insightful. They hit on everything from the outside stuff, like our options and who's around us, to all the internal things, our feelings, our logic, and even our basic character. That's a pretty complete picture of how complex making a decision really is. So, from this one simple story about a girl, a fox, and a tree, this whole universe of huge questions just bubbled up. Questions about life, who we are, and what it even means to choose. They started to poke at the very idea of helping. When Deniz helps the fox, is it just for the fox? Or does doing something good actually change Deniz for the better too? And then they went all the way back to that first choice between the two paths. Let's say, for argument's sake, that both paths would have gotten Deniz to the tree in time. Does it matter which one she took? In other words, is the journey just as important as the destination?
And this is where my mind was just blown. The kids started to link our choices directly to our identity. Are we basically just the sum of all our past decisions? Does every choice, big or small, literally build the person we are right now?
They also talked about this feedback loop in life. You know how it works? You make a choice, you see what happens, and that result, whether it's good or bad, totally informs the next choice you have to make. How much does that cycle really guide our future? And finally, they landed on the biggest question of them all. When you think about all those things they listed, our environment, our past, our feelings, our logic, how much control do we actually have? How free are we, really, when we make a choice? It's a massive, staggering question. And to think, it all started with a simple story about saving a forest.